This is the story of Prince Kian, the unloved obese heir of the ancient kingdom of Zaria, who ran from palace rivalry and fake affection. The kingdom of Zaria was a jewel of gold and cedar, ruled by the stern hand of King Elara. Its heir, Prince Kian, lived in a gilded cage. Though admired by all for his grace and intellect, Kian felt a profound isolation. He watched the many wives of his father, the endless jostling for influence among his siblings, and the calculated kindness of the entire court. Every smile directed his way felt like a strategic move on a grand chessboard. Kian's younger brother, Ramin, also felt the weight of the court's expectations, but Kian carried the primary burden. He was the prize, the ultimate symbol of power, yet he was starving for genuine human connection. The weight of his inheritance felt crushing. He often retreated to the silent corners of the palace, observing the shadows and whispering a truth that only the stones could hear. The love here, he realized, was not a gift, it was currency, and he wanted no part of the transaction.
Kian grew up watching the court's constant masquerade. He witnessed alliances forged and broken over trivial matters, compliments delivered with poisonous intent, and affections that vanished the moment his father, King Elara, turned his back. The experience poisoned his perception of love. By his early 20s, despite his physical strength and wealth, Kian remained emotionally guarded, convinced that any woman who approached him desired the throne behind him, not the man within. He wanted a love that was simple, uncalculated, and pure, but the world of Zaria offered him nothing but elaborate performances. He craved the chance to be seen without the blinding light of his title. The only solution, he determined, was to erase the traits that drew such false admiration. He needed to disappear from the world's expectations to discover its genuine core.
One humid morning, Kian requested an audience with King Elara, finding his father mediating a land dispute. When the elders departed, Kian knelt. "Father," he began, "I need to travel, not for war, nor trade. I need to live for myself." King Elara, sensing the depth of his son's distress, raised an eyebrow. Kian explained his despair over the palace's transactional affection, confessing that if he stayed, he would drown in the things people pretend to love. The king, remembering his own struggles with the court's intricate politics, sighed deeply. Though troubled by the risk, he recognized the wounded soul before him. "Go," King Elara said finally, his voice heavy with resignation. "Find whatever peace this palace could not give you. Return with clarity." Kian traveled for days, shaking off the trappings of his royal life. He dismissed his guards, insisting on moving alone, wearing only simple traveler's clothes. He sought a profound disguise, a shield more powerful than any wall. His journey led him to the remote highlands, to a small, hidden compound marked by ancient carved stones. Here lived the reclusive shaman, Baba Nuru, known for his deep knowledge of ancient magics and herbs. Kian found the old man grinding leaves, his eyes surprisingly clear and seeing. Baba Nuru did not act surprised, greeting the prince as though he had expected him all along. Kian knelt on the warm, dry earth, the moment heavy with destiny. He knew this was the point of no return.
"Baba," Kian spoke, his voice low with desperation, "I need your help. I want to hide my beauty. Make me someone no one will want. I want to be heavy, slow, and undesirable." Kian felt foolish uttering the words, but his desire for an honest life was stronger than his pride. Babanuru studied him intently. "You seek freedom, not from enemies, but from admiration," the shaman observed, and rose with unexpected steadiness. Inside the shrine, drums began to beat a slow, deliberate rhythm. Babanuru mixed a thick, potent paste of oils and ground seeds. As he placed the mixture on Kian's tongue and chest, the prince felt a deep warmth spread through his body. The shaman warned him one last time. "Your appearance will be fixed, a permanent condition. Only true, uncalculated love can make you return to your former self."
The ritual was complete, and Kion's body swelled, becoming heavy and rounder, his movements slowed. Weeks later, when Kion returned to Zaria, the reaction was immediate and profound. The guards at the gate stared, confused, until he spoke his name. Servants gasped and backed away, while the wives of King Alari whispered behind their hands, unsure whether to pity or fear him. The striking, admired prince was gone, replaced by a man unrecognizable, obese, heavy, and slow. The news spread like wildfire. Some feared sorcery, others mocked him quietly, but none understood the truth of his self-imposed test. As Kion stood in the courtyard, absorbing their judgment and confusion, he felt a strange, quiet relief. For the first time, he was not an object of desire. Life in the palace shifted dramatically. Kian walked through the same courtyards where women once fought for his attention, only to find those same women now avoiding eye contact. A few tried to pretend they saw past his new body, offering him compliments and companionship with a calculated sweetness that was too shallow to hide their true, power-seeking motives. But Kian had learned to read eyes better than words. His weight was an invisible, magical shield. Anyone who feigned affection quickly exposed themselves when they failed the test of patience and non-judgmental acceptance. He spent his days attending to kingdom affairs with a renewed focus, calmer and more observant than before. Kian had traded admiration for peace, but without realizing it, a new, deeper kind of loneliness began to take root in his heart. The quiet stability of King Alari's life was interrupted one midday by a new kind of movement at the edge of the kingdom. A group of foreign missionaries entered Zaria, bringing not weapons or gold, but knowledge, tools, and a new faith. King Alari, though initially wary, received them in the royal court. Among them stood Elara. She was tall, composed, and drew attention not by performance, but by her gentle confidence. She spoke only when needed, with a soft authority that suggested great depth. Elara observed the court, including the heavy prince, with quiet attention. She did not stare with curiosity or judgment, making her instantly different. Kian saw her from across the courtyard and was intrigued. She carried herself like someone who belonged anywhere she stood, completely unaware of the effect she had on the prince. One afternoon, Kian found himself walking a shaded path near the market, seeking quiet, when he came across Elara. She was admiring a local craft. When he approached, she did not gasp, bow, or freeze. She simply smiled and greeted him warmly. "Good afternoon," she said, without the calculated sweetness he had grown to distrust. She did not lower her eyes, flood him with praise, or mention his appearance. She met his gaze with sincere honesty. Kian, Amused that she showed no sign of recognizing his identity or title, which he withheld, simply replied, "Kian." She nodded and spoke only of her faith, her purpose, and the hope she carried, truths that did not depend on gold or power. Her voice was gentle and steady, offering him a feeling of ease he had not known in years. Their encounters became more frequent, coincidence at first, then unspoken intention. Elara never asked why he walked with slowness or heaviness. She simply looked at him as a man. They spoke about purpose, choices, and living beyond expectations. Kian found himself speaking more than he had in years, sharing the complex truths of the palace. Elara offered no pity. She simply listened and sometimes laughed softly, reminding him of the simplicity of a heart connected to God. Her presence did not chase away his loneliness. It replaced it with understanding. Kian realized that peace was not a location or a possession. It was the person standing next to him, asking nothing and offering everything. Unknowingly, the gentle warmth of her acceptance began to melt the protective shell around his soul.
Weeks passed, and Kian's body subtly began to lighten, a change he barely noticed. The full reversal came one late afternoon while they were walking. Elara was recounting a humorous story about a traveler. Kian laughed loudly, a genuine, unforced sound that carried across the path. In that moment of unburdened joy, something profound shifted. His heart raced, his skin tingled, and the weight on his body dissolved instantly and visibly like clay under rain. Elara gasped, covering her mouth as she watched his body regain its definition, his movements sharpen. Tian collapsed to his knees, stunned. He looked up at Elara, whose eyes were filled not with fear, but searching understanding. "Through love," he whispered, realizing the herbalist's condition had been met the moment he felt peace standing beside her.
Restored, Kian requested an audience with King Alari, walking with the confidence of a man who had chosen his path. He declared his intent to marry Elara, the woman whose sincerity brought back the part of me I lost. The king rose from his throne in a fury. "A foreign woman? A Christian woman?" King Alari demanded, pacing the court. "You are heir. Your wife must be a daughter of this soil. If you choose her, you choose against this land and its traditions." Kian stood firm. "Father, she saw me when no one else did. A throne built on duty without love is a prison. I would rather live free beside a woman who sees me." King Alari's face hardened. "If you marry her, you are no longer heir. Your brother Ramin will wear the crown." The king's words struck Kian, but they landed softly. He had already accepted this cost long ago. He bowed his head slightly, not in defeat, but in quiet acceptance, then walked out. He did not lose his inheritance. He found his peace. That evening, Kian found Elara weeping in her small hut. "You gave up your inheritance because of me," she whispered, her voice breaking. "I do not want to be the reason a nation loses its king." Kian lifted her chin. "I did not lose anything," he said softly. "I found something the throne could never give me: peace." He recounted the ultimatum and his choice. She pressed her forehead to his shoulder. "I'm afraid," she confessed. Kian held her tight. "Then we will be afraid together, but we will stand." The palace buzzed with preparation for Prince Ramin's coronation. On the day of the ceremony, Kian and Elara stood quietly among the crowd. King Alari, heavy with ceremonial robes, prepared to declare Ramin the new heir. As the royal staff was placed in Ramin's hands, the unexpected happened. Ramin bowed, but instead of taking the throne, he spoke loudly.
"I cannot accept this crown," he declared, his voice emotional yet steady. "Kian is the true heir by heart. He sought peace when others chased power. A man who recognizes truth is the man fit to lead." He returned the staff to Kian. Kian, staff in hand, looked at the throne, then at Elara, and finally at his brother. "I thank you, but I choose a different path," Kian said, returning the staff.
Kian and Elara departed from Zaria, carrying Kian's personal wealth and inheritance acquired over his years of business. They traveled across the waters, eventually settling in the United Kingdom. Kian invested wisely, and his business grew rapidly. He and Elara used their wealth to fund church outreaches, missionary travel, and to sponsor students. Kian became known as a generous businessman, never revealing his prince title. Years later, they returned to Zaria not to rule, but to serve. Kian introduced modern farming techniques and funded the first modern school and health center in the kingdom. He did not sit on the throne, but he influenced the land more profoundly than any king could have. Kian ruled hearts, not by decree, but by kindness, becoming the man who chose to rule a heart and thereby became more than a king.
Every story hides a lesson, sometimes love, sometimes pain, but always truth. Subscribe to African Kingdom Folktales for more African tales that touch the soul.